Hey guys, this is Eckhart Slaughter. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars lore video. And today's content will probably be a little bit shorter because I just want to react to some new information about the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And every time I put out one of these videos, which to be fair isn't very frequently, I like to include the little disclaimer that I'm not a sequel trilogy hater. There are elements of those movies that I like, there are elements that frustrate me greatly, so if you're trying to hold me up as either a shill or a hater of everything Disney, well, you're not actively portraying my opinion. And as a note, the same is true with my Star Wars Legends stuff. People assume that I cover Star Wars Legends because I've rejected canon, and that's not the case. For one, I do cover quite a bit of canon material. The fact is, I just have much more of an expertise when it comes to Star Wars Legends, and it's the expanded universe that I do prefer. Anyway, we've known for a while now that the Star Wars sequel trilogy had some real issues with continuity and overall planning. We see, if we read the Episode 7 art book, that the team behind that movie was concerned with making an Episode 7 and making a series reboot rather than creating the first piece of a cohesive trilogy. Episode 8, of course, then surprised people because it was arguably a little bit disjointed and it didn't go in the direction that a lot of people expected it to. Then we get Episode 9, a movie which invents and then defeats a bad guy at the end of a trilogy, and which is, to put it lightly, arguably a little bit self-contained. However, there's also hints that there's even something more serious, or there was something more serious, going on with the development of Episode 9. If we read the art book for that movie, we don't see anything about Palpatine. It seems it was pretty unclear how JJ was going to take the movie, and where there were opportunities to make new ships, for example, or go with new designs, cost-cutting measures were instead used. If we look at the Zeiston, for example, that's literally a Rogue One Star Destroyer model with a gun attached to the bottom, and that's why it's an Imperial One, most likely. Not because the design looks better as the Imperial One, but because there was already that very, very high-quality digital model from Rogue One. Still, before today, a lot of the discussion about this disorganization has just been speculation from fans, with maybe a little bit coming out in official narratives. That all changed tonight, and to be frank, it's a little shocking to see. So, Daisy Ridley was a guest on a Josh Gad hosted episode of Jimmy Kimmel. Now, I didn't watch this, because of course I didn't, but Twitter user Slimo very helpfully chronicled most of the interview, and I'll link to her thread down in the description. Daisy, in her interview, continues the recent trend of Star Wars actors being brutally honest about the handling of the trilogy, and when Josh asks her whether she knew about Rey's heritage, Daisy simply says no. At one point, they were toying with an Obi-Wan connection, but it kept changing throughout the movie. Then she goes even further. She says when it came to Episode 9, JJ pitched her the idea that she would be Palpatine's granddaughter. However, even JJ seemed to go back and forth on this, and she says he would come back and say, oh, I'm not sure, and that it kept changing, and that she wasn't even sure what the answer was as they were filming the movie. And I think this represents the sort of greater issue that Episode 9 had with Palpatine. Look at the art books. There's nothing about Palpatine. The DVD has almost no special features relating to the making of the movie. This film was obviously a complete mess. I'm guessing that JJ went back and forth on not only Palpatine as Rey's grandfather, but also Palpatine's inclusion in the movie overall. Hence, the lack of concept art, and I think what is a generally kind of boring design for a resurrected Sith Lord, although I do like Exegol and the throne and whatever else. If I were to just purely speculate, I would say that Exegol and the Sith Eternal probably played a role in the movie for quite a while. When you look at the art book, you can tell that the Sith Eternal was at one point a portion of the First Order, and that their relation to other factions within the galaxy switched around pretty fluidly, but I'm not going to reiterate those points. I've already covered that all in a video on the Sith Trooper, which I'll link in the upper right hand corner. Episode 9 is probably not my least favorite Star Wars movie, but it is, in my opinion, the messiest of them all. It has a fairly long runtime, but most of the plot is spent chasing down objects. lots of what people have called fetch quests. In my opinion, JJ doesn't get a lot out of his actors. Major set pieces seemed quite rushed, and the best example of that would be the Exegol space battle, where ILM was forced to not only reuse ships in a way that doesn't make sense, I mean there are dozens of versions of Han's freighter from episode 7, but also use computer programs to randomly generate new ships just to sort of give the scene some weight, compared to something like the Battle of Endor or the Battle of Coruscant or Scarif, where there were less ship types, but the battle itself has an actual flow to it, which is where it gets its real quality from. There are really two main issues. For one, this movie absolutely should have been pushed back at least another year. It needed a lot more time to cook. These story decisions should have been nailed down before filming began. We hear of lost scenes or potential scenes that didn't make the cut, and it seems like they could have had the movie's plot been fully fleshed out, but also slimmed down in key parts. And we learned, for example, about Kylo Ren meeting an Oracle in a scene that sounded pretty interesting. Other scenes, like a visit to Coruscant, were cut just because they probably couldn't be made to fit into the relatively rushed movie structure. The second problem is that the movies just don't work as a trilogy, and everybody has said this. I'm not going to reiterate this point too much, but this all should have been planned out from the beginning. Did George Lucas plan out every aspect of every movie that he ever did? No. But the differences are that he's never done a bad job concluding a trilogy, in my opinion. And even if there are issues, both the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy feel like a fairly consistent and cohesive vision. Just how did it get to this point? How did Disney pay so much money and not figure this stuff out in advance? I don't know. But guys, I don't want to belabor the point. That's all I've got for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, but hopefully not too much, because I don't love making these anti-Star Wars videos or anything like that. But until next time, please be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.